Hello, girls and boys. We're going to look at one block of information in this presentation, and that's all debt indicators of the private sector percent. Canada is encircled there because it's not my personal information. I've just got it off the interwebs, and there's obviously a particular interest in Canada about this. But the rest of the information we can all look at because it's about us most probably. So let's have a run across and see what we've got here. 3 columns: household gross debt to disposable income ratio. So we've got debt to disposable income, which I like debt to disposable income. Then we get non-financial corporations gross to GDP. Anything to GDP that's not GDP is always a bit weird, but it's the way they always do it, so we've got not much choice. And the other one's financial corporations gross debt to GDP. So it's debt to GDP, which is just standard, so we've got to accept it. Middle column is non-financials, that's your corporation sort of stuff, and financial corporations, which are your banky sort of things. Right, so we've got household, industrials and banking sector, and how much debt they're holding. United States at the top because they're the most important. So let's have a quick look at household. Now each column split into 3. I'll go from the right hand one of the 3, the middle, and then the left hand one. The right hand one in the column, which is household, is pre-boom levels, which is 2000, the year 2000, which was pretty boomy if you remember it. It was the end of the dot-com thing. It was pretty boomy in its own way, but there was extra boom up to 2007, which is the middle column. And then we get 2011 is, well, what's happened after the Great Recession, 2007 to 2011, which is the information they have, but obviously it's still ongoing. Right. So we've got household, first column, pre-boom level at 100, and that's debt to disposable income, which is fine. It's good way to judge. It's a big number. 100 is a big number. Debt to disposable is a big number when it's 100. Yeah, it just is a big number. And then at pre-crisis level, it was an even bigger number. In other words, we know it was a boom, a bubble. And its bubbles popped to a certain extent because it's come down to 118, but the 118 is still bigger than the 100, and the 100 is still a big number. Right, that's your households, and we understand vaguely, we can get a gauge, because we all know a bit about the United States of America. And it was 100, 137, 118, you know. So we can roughly know what the sort of numbers are for household. And we can get a rough idea for non-financials, let's call them the industrials. Industrial pre-boom level at 113, a big number. It's over your 100. It's different from the household 100, but it's the similar sort of, it's not good to be over 100. And it was 113, then went up to 116, it's fallen back to 106. Pretty flat, really. No great bubble in the industrial sector. Over on the banking side, we're on much bigger numbers. We're on nearer 300 numbers, and again it's different because it's the banking sector, but there's no reason to believe that the banking sector should be over 100. It's not obliged to be over 100. It's not because it's the banking sector it's a bigger number. Take these numbers further back in time and they're not over 100, but they are over 100 now. They're well over 100, going 277 pre-boom up to 333 and now dropped back to about 308. Huge numbers. It's not as nuclear as some of the others that we're going to come to later, but these are very, very big numbers. And to get a gauge there again, we know what makes up a lot of these big 300 numbers. It's Bank of America, we know about them. Citigroup, we know about them. And JP Morgan, to a greater extent, we know about them. And because it's financial corporations, Morgan Stanley will be in there as well. And Morgan Stanley is, at the moment, well dodgy. All right? So we know that those are big numbers, and we know the dodginess that's in there, but still they're not nearly the worst that we're going to come to in this, looking at all these numbers. Let's drop down to the bottom and get an idea from the euro area, which isn't, because it's not the European area, it's the euro area. It's not quite as big as the United States, but it'll give us a good cross-reference. So we're going over to households again. The Europeans, in toto, in all, not as indebted. They start the pre-boom at 85 as opposed to 100. They push up to 105, and now they've pushed up slightly to 107. So they're at very big indebted numbers, but not as big indebted numbers as the United States. Similar in the non-financial corporations in the industrials, a smaller number at 78, going up to 91 and then up to 96. So they are up to now a number which is less than the number where the United States started at pre-boom levels 2000. Yep. The banks are slightly, it's a similar sort of idea. Starting at a very similar number, 269 to America's 277. They pushed on harder. They went more indebted themselves, the banks, up to 365 as opposed to the United States 333, and they've pushed on even higher up to 381, where United States has dropped back to 308. Again, this is, as an overall thing, a potential nuclear explosion. So we're going to go into the figures a bit more and find out where the nuclear explosions are likely to be in the European area, because they will happen specifically, like Spain's just had its strange little bailout now. The problems are specific. Actually, they actually exist in actual places, and these are just group numbers. But the explosions are actual things in actual places. The bombs are out there. So Japan, let's have a look there, because we close up at the top. We can compare to the United States figures. So much more indebted households, but they're coming down as opposed to the United States, which went up and then comes down. So it's 143, 136, 124. I don't know how long they've been coming down, but I suspect this is just all part of their general coming downness over the last 20 years. A similar picture in the industrials, 172 coming down to 148, and they've pushed on a bit in the Great Recession. Nuclear bomb alert, Japanese banks. This is one of the biggest nuclear bombs in the world. Basically, I can imagine if you want to imagine it with me. What we're talking about here is debt to GDP, and it's quite hard to actually understand when it is financial corporation debt compared to GDP, how much, because you're getting assets and you've got liabilities, and it's as though you take the entire balance sheets of the banks onto the government sector, and how it would be, because you've got a lot of assets in there. But if there's a nuclear explosion, those assets really don't hold their value at all in a nuclear wasteland. So I would say that anything over 200%, the debt to GDP, is not the sort of thing the government wants on the books, because that's a big enough potential explosion that could blow the government up. Okay, and there you've got Japan, 566, 519, 555. It's just too big. As in, there is a huge nuclear bomb in the financial sector of Japan, and they have tried to diffuse it and make it safe, but it's not been diffused and it's not safe, because this is I'll go to a cartoon analogy. It's a fuse, like an old-fashioned fuse that's been lit, that's going tss. because this sort of thing is fine as long as the economy is booming and the debts are being paid back, and then the banks can get their shit together. But if there's no boom and no growth and the debts aren't being paid back, that's just a fuse. And that's just what it is. It's a nuclear bomb with a old-fashioned fizzy fuse on it. And it is going to blow up unless something absolutely miraculous happens. And it's such a huge nuclear bomb, it just wipes out Japan and lots of other things. Germany, a lot more reasonable, obviously, in the households, because Germany are more reasonable than most people. But still a number over 100, but bringing it back, 116, 103, 94. In the industrials, reasonable sort of numbers, which shows you don't need these elevated levels. Germany's kicking ass on 78, 77, 74. Banking sector in Germany is a dodgy thing. It is a nuclear bomb. It's not as big as Japan's, but it's enough to take Germany out if it blows. No doubt about it. 290, 322, 319. Far too big. And without the chunking, ratcheting on of growth, that is a bomb that is going to go off. France, households 70, 92, 101. They were all right, but now they've moved into are you sure you want 100% of debt to disposable income? I don't think you do. Industrials the same, 82, 89, 104, cranking in horribly the wrong direction. Not tragically huge, but it is tragically huge because France is doing rubbish, basically. It's not doing bad, but it's just not kicking ass. And to support those sort of figures, you need to do much more than, blah negative or zero. You need to be up in kick ass sort of amounts. And the financial sector is nuclear. It's gone 185, 275, 335. They've been covering up their own inadequacies. In other words, the debts aren't being paid back, it's quite obvious, and they're lending each other more money to cover the debts, basically, and they'll be rolling debts over. That is going in the wrong direction, the country's going in the wrong direction, and the fizzy fuse is attached to a very, very large and getting larger nuclear bomb. Italy, very strangely low household sector, but it's increasing, 44, 71, 80. But the 80 is still well below anything that we've come across so far. The corporate sector, everything under 100, but it's increasing. They are struggling, and instead of manufacturing and getting productivity and kicking ass that way, the companies are borrowing more money, and I suspect getting into trouble and just digging themselves a hole. They don't want to go bust, so they borrow more money. And it tides them over until the Great Recession finishes. But as the Great Recession's gone on, Italy's productivity has just continued to slide negative. The banks are doing a similar thing to France's, just getting themselves in a worse position, and have gone 124, 178, 207, going in the wrong direction, with nothing in sight that says that people of Italy are going to pay these debts back. I know they're financial corporation debt, but we'll go with that. United Kingdom, 117, 183, 160. The very large jump they had their housing boom 2000 to 2007 in these figures, up to 183, which was the biggest in 2007, and down to 160, and it's the biggest one we've covered so far. United Kingdom, can they on-go this sort of amount of household debt? I can't see why they can. In the United Kingdom industrial, they've gone up 93 to 116, 113. Not tragic. In normal times, not tragic. But the numbers are over 100. And again, if you want numbers as big as that, you really need an economy that's booming. And the UK industrial sector is not booming. United Kingdom financial corporate banking sector, look at that. Now, it's because of the square mile, they used to call it, the City of London, the banking sector. And well, what do you say? 5, 6, 9, 8, 10, 853. It's made quite a lot of money for the government, as in taxes and bankers making bonuses and paying taxes on that, etc. And it's what the UK has specialised in doing. And it's been an advantage. But now that's such a big nuclear bomb that it's almost so big that it might as well be even bigger, because if something like that goes off, you're just completely and utterly wiped out anyway. But, just to repeat, on the banking things, the economy needs to boom. There needs to be growth. There needs to be advancement, so people can easily find the extra so they can pay their interests. If they don't pay their interests and start defaulting, the whole thing tumbles down backwards. And that's going to make an awful lot of a splash into the Thames, 853, if it tumbles down backwards. Canada, its housing boom still going mad. 112, 137, 183. Going through the Great Recession, chance of it continuing 0. Might for 2 years. Won't continue forever, and when it does go down, Canada will find itself very vulnerable indeed. All its non-financials are over 100, although it's coming, it's just over 100, which is too much, and it'll certainly be too much when the housing sector cracks, and the banking sector is commensurately too large as well. 238, 298, 327 increasing. This is not the time to be increasing unless the economy is booming. Australia, a similar thing to Canada, 124, 186, 183. Similar numbers on the on the corporate sector, but slightly lower, and basically banking numbers that are too big. 191, huge jump up to 315, and then come back slightly. 191 up to 315 is their housing boom, which will rip the country apart. When it comes, it'll rip the industrial sector apart and the banking sector. Belgium, little Belgium, they're just steadily, naughtily creeping everything in the wrong directions. They haven't, they were better off when they didn't have a government. 67, 84, 91, going in the wrong direction, but still the wrong size. Still going in the wrong direction. Flat and reasonable numbers on the non-financial, and they've got a banking sector which is far, far, far too big for the country, and basically everything has to go extremely right for that banking sector not to blow Belgium up, and there's no sign of things going extremely right for anyone at the moment. Greece, you can see, has gone daft, 28, 74, 97. And then in the non-financial, 47, 63, 68, they've tried to borrow themselves out of trouble. Banking sector, 109, 154, 219. Obviously, it's all money that's come in from external now, because they've basically lost all the money that they thought they had. Ireland's numbers almost don't make sense. 228, remaining at 228. Non-financials are up quite a lot because I think it's the only thing that's keeping Ireland going. So they're quite happy to lend to them. And with banking sector, just in on a quantum shell outside everything else, where other things are 100 and something, they're 1,000 and something, and it can't work. Basically, it's too much, and it will have to be defaulted on One day, Korea chunking in the wrong direction on the household, chunking in the wrong direction on the non-financial, and going in the wrong direction on the banking. Korea is in trouble, basically. It had a good model and it had its mojo going for nearly 30 years, but that has now stopped. The Netherlands is a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous place to be. Netherlands still on the way up. 174, 261, 290 in the household, ridiculously big, trying to emulate Hong Kong. Netherlands is not Hong Kong. In the non-financial, it's all over 100, which is not good, and the banking sector is ridiculously too large and increasingly too large, up in the 500s, going up into the large 600s. Too big and nuclear. And again, just to repeat, just to be boring, but this is how life works. Unless there's huge quantities of growth and the interest can be found on the loans taken out, they will be defaulted on, and when loans are defaulted on, that reduces asset prices on other things and the whole thing falls down. And there's just so many of these nuclear bombs all over the place. Now you can get a vague idea why government people panic. Holland is not the place to be at. It's a good, solid people, work hard and all that, but they've just pushed it too far. Portugal's, should we go? Might as well keep going through all of them, eh? Portugal going in the wrong direction on the household, going in the wrong direction in the corporates, and going in the wrong direction in the banks. They're going in the wrong direction because they're trying to borrow their way out of these problems. They can't do it because they haven't got the production, they haven't got the capacity. So they're just going deeper into debt and digging a hole. It's going to blow. Spain, same. Households, they got their bank bailout, they needed it. Because of this, the 85 up to the 147. During the recession, it's tamed down a bit, but it's not enough. The manufacturing sector won't be manufacturing sector because they don't manufacture that much. It'll be the building sector there. 72 up to 128 and on to 132. The loans are out there for that sector in the banks. The banks, ridiculous, 154 up to 232 and up to 239. They've got their bailout, but that'll be the first bailout of 100 billion euro. They'll need more, but by the time they need more, so many other people need so much more as well. And the actual money is not there to be lent. Switzerland, it's a different outfit, it's a different thing. Switzerland, it can't really be compared to anywhere, but the household debt is huge, industrial debt is average, and obviously the banking sector is nuclear. And if you compare that again to Europe and then go up to the United States, and you can see when we did the United States, household 100, 137, 118, it's quite reasonable compared to some of the other places that we've come across. And we know more about the United States because we know more about the United States, so we can imagine better what these other places are like. Same for the industrials, just over 100 in the United States. When you get the Netherlands at 136 and numbers like that, they shouldn't be up there. And the banking sector that we know is a bit dodgy, to say the least, in the United States at around 300. We've got 500, 600s down in other countries that have got no reasonable expectation that things are going to be nearly good enough to pay. They weren't even going to be good enough when they projected out the booms. If you projected out the booms, it wasn't even going to be good enough. But the boom has generally turned to great recession, stagnation, or negative, and there's no chance at all that these debts are going to be paid back, and the nuclear bombs are going to go off because there's not enough money in the world to pay them back. As soon as one nuclear bomb goes off, it sets off other ones. And somebody somewhere along the line, a Martian I would recommend probably, has to waft in on a spaceship and tell people what to do, because there aren't people on this Earth that could possibly know what to do when banking nuclear bombs go off. Bye.